Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to our exciting health series held here on this platform with Dr. Leonard Gibbons, who has been doing an excellent job in making the presentations. We are about to experience the seventh of 8 presentations. And we're so glad that you have joined us, and we trust and pray that you will call someone, invite someone else to be a part of the experience. We welcome those of you who are on YouTube, and we thank God for the information and the inspiration that we're getting to live healthy lives with the New Start solution to the challenges that we have with our health conditions. Well, as is our custom, we're going to have a word of prayer before we proceed. Let us pray. Father, we thank you that you are the source of our strength and the center of our joy, that every good and perfect gift comes from you. Today, we thank you for the blessings of a brand new day. We ask and invite the presence and power of your spirit to be in our midst. Bless our presenter, Dr. Gibbons. Give him clarity of thought, and may we have understanding and grasp the information, and most of all, give us the power to put it into practice, to change our lifestyles so that we can be in a better condition physically, mentally, and spiritually. To this day, and we pray in Christ's name, amen. Well, again, we thank you for being with us today, and it's been a wonderful experience. If you've enjoyed this experience, you want to let us know. And we are looking forward to next week's presentation. We also want to put it out there that there is a graduation. You will receive your certificate, those of you who have registered and stayed the course. And so we look forward to the in-person experience that will be held at the Somerset Seventh-day Adventist Church on number 6 Beacon Hill Road in Sandys Parish. It's going to take place on the first Saturday in the month of September, that's September the 4th at 4 o'clock. Dr. Gibbons will be there. All the team will be there. We will get to meet you in person. We will get to give you your certificate. We'll get to share some inspiring thoughts. And then for those of you who have taken the quiz and got all the quizzes right, the pastor has promised that you will get your basket for every week that you have completed successfully the quiz. So it's very important that you take the quiz, that you get that quiz result into us. We'll do the draw, and we promise to give you a prize. How's that? Well, without further ado, I didn't come by myself. There's a team and a host of people who are here, eager to get on with business today. And I think the next order of business is to have our very own quiz master, Roslyn Mingo, to give us that quiz. Roslyn, good morning.
Morning, Pastor. Good morning, everyone. This morning, we will have quizzes from session 6 from last week, natural approaches to better blood pressure control, as well as the quiz for this week's session. So there's much to cover, so let's go. Natural approaches to better blood pressure control. Question number 1. If you make big lifestyle changes and you are on blood pressure medication, it is important to check your blood pressure reading every day. True. Number 2, when you are taking your blood pressure reading, it is okay to cross your legs and put the blood pressure cuff over clothing instead of directly on the skin. That's false. Number 3, a normal blood pressure reading is less than 120 systolic and less than 80 diastolic. That's true. Number 4, an optimal range for a systolic blood pressure reading for preventing a stroke or heart attack is 120 to 129. That is false. Number 5, risk of kidney failure is highest for a blood pressure reading greater than 159 over 99. That's true. Number 6, high blood pressure is a leading cause of death. True. Number 7, 2 drugs are commonly needed to achieve good blood pressure control in individuals with high blood pressure. That's false. Number 8, the best time to take most blood pressure medications is in the morning. That is false. Number 9, based on a major research study, the heart and stroke prevention drug strategies are very effective. False. Number 10, the side effects of blood pressure medications as a group are minimal and nothing to be concerned about. That's false. Number 11, weight loss, sodium restriction, exercise, and the DASH diet are the commonly prescribed lifestyle options for improving blood pressure control. True. Number 12, the DASH diet is superior to a whole plant food diet for improving blood pressure control. False. Number 13, lowering the sodium intake by 2,300 milligrams per day lowers the blood pressure by 3 to 6. That's true. Number 14, a reduction in blood pressure of 10.4/8 was achieved in 3 hours after consuming 1 cup of beet juice in one study. That's true. Number 15, CoQ10, flaxseed, and bananas have all been proven effective at lowering elevated blood pressure levels in clinical studies. True. Number 16, based on clinical studies, about 3 to 4 cups, that is 3 to 4 tea bags of dried hibiscus flower tea per day is an effective dosage for lowering elevated blood pressure levels. That's true. Number 17, losing body weight reduces blood pressure by 1.5/1 for every 2 pounds of weight loss. That is true. Number 18, exercise is not as effective as most blood pressure medications in lowering elevated blood pressure levels. That's false. Number 19, nitric acid is an important chemical in the body for relaxing the blood vessels and maintaining a healthy blood pressure level. That's true. And number 20, rest, balance, sunlight, deep breathing exercises, and trust in God can all help to normalize elevated blood pressure readings. That certainly is true. Okay. Next quiz for session 7 on preventing and memory loss. Number 1, dementia affects the ability to think and remember to the point at which it affects a person's daily functioning. That's true. Number 2, stage 2 dementia includes forgetfulness noticed by others, difficulty at work, and anxiety. That's false. Number 3, the peanut butter smell test for detecting early Alzheimer's is a highly accurate test for detecting Alzheimer's at preclinical phase. That is true. Number 4, several drugs approved to treat Alzheimer's, including donepezil or Aricept and memantine, Namenda, don't delay the onset of Alzheimer's or improve or maintain mental function. That's true. Number 5, according to some researchers, up to 50% of Alzheimer's disease cases may be attributable to modifiable risk factors. That's true. Number 6, according to Dean and Aisha Sherzai, lipid and glucose dysregulation, along with inflammation, coagulation, and oxidation, are important factors in promoting Alzheimer's disease. That's false. Number 7, The anatomical indicators of Alzheimer's include tau tangles, amyloid plaques, and cholesterol plaques. That's false. Number 8, diabetes and low levels of folate and vitamin B12 are associated with the formation of amyloid plaques in Alzheimer's disease. That is true. Number 9, researchers gave people B vitamins for 2 years and found that these vitamins markedly lowered the rate of brain shrinkage. True. Number 10, steaming, boiling, poaching, stewing, stir frying, or using a slow cooker promote the creation of AGEs, which are linked to Alzheimer's disease. That's false. Number 11, chicken, bacon, hot dog, beef, turkey, fish, and cheese have some of the highest amounts of AGEs of any foods. That's true. Number 12, the reasons given for the increased rates of dementia in Japan over the past few decades include increases in cholesterol, saturated fat, and iron from animal products in the diet. That's true. Number 13, those who adhere to the MIND diet, composed largely of whole plant foods, had a lower rate of cognitive decline equal to being 7.5 years younger cognitively. That's true. Number 14, among vegetables, green leafy vegetables have been identified as having the strongest protective effects against cognitive decline. That's true. Number 15, ginkgo biloba, turmeric, lemon balm, blueberries, turmeric, and rosemary are not helpful in delaying the onset of Alzheimer's disease or reversing any of the symptoms associated with the disease. That is false. Number 16, once someone is beginning to experience the first signs of early dementia, there is nothing we can do to slow down or reverse the journey towards late stage Alzheimer's disease. That is false. Number 17, a lemon balm infused lotion applied twice daily was able to significantly reduce shouting, screaming, and physical aggression in patients with severe Alzheimer's disease. That's true. Number 18, non-food-related solutions for Alzheimer's disease, according to Dean and Aisha Sherzai, include the following: regular exercise, daylight exposure, continual learning, purpose-driven activities, social engagement, 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and stress management. That is true. Number 19, saffron is an example of one plant that has been proven scientifically to be both safer and just as effective as 2 common drugs used to treat Alzheimer's disease. That's true. And number 20, the lowest validated rates of Alzheimer's in the world are in rural India, where they eat low meat, high grain, high bean, high carb diets, in addition to the spice turmeric. That is true. If you missed any of the answers to today's quiz, you can watch it again at Somerset Seventh-day Adventist Church on YouTube or Somerset Seventh-day Adventist Church on Facebook. Or check our website, SomersetSDA.org. Pastor.
Thank you, Roslyn. I know that that's not showing signs of dementia. I know that.
Oh, goodness, I hope not.
But the information will be posted. It's there. And we thank you, Roslyn, for the excellent job that you've done. Give us our Q&A. And now, actually our quiz. Now we will have our Q&A brought to us by Razia Swan. Thank you, Razia.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for posting your questions in the chat. And we're going to address the questions from last week's presentation to Dr. Gibbons. So Dr. Gibbons, here we go.
Okay.
Is the wrist cup a safe to use to take your blood pressure?
You need to keep in mind one thing. The arteries in the wrist are much smaller, and what ends up happening is the blood pressure reading can be higher than if you're taking it in the cuff, in the regular place in the arm. So the readings will record usually higher with the wrist than with the other cuff. Okay, so it's not the most accurate in that regard. So you may see your pressures higher reading using the wrist. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Does it, you had mentioned the use of garlic. Does it have to be raw garlic?
In a number of the studies, it wasn't necessarily raw. Now, the platelet function of garlic, that is, prevents the blood from clotting, that function is inhibited if it's cold. Okay, so if you want to thin the blood, then you want to make sure that you have some component of the raw garlic. Okay, so I think I mentioned about if you chop it up in about 8 minutes, and after that it's at its active level. Now, of course, you don't necessarily like the odor and all of that, but just bear in mind if it's for the blood thinning effect, you want a little bit raw, but otherwise in that it should still be beneficial.
Okay, next question. Someone says they are on 2 medications for blood pressure. Systolic is high, over 120. Diastolic is good, under 80. How do you handle the changes in the blood pressure?
Well, the same, what we covered during that whole presentation, so the nutrition, the stress management, weight loss, if the weight is significantly high, the supplements, etc. All of those factors. Sometimes people do have one number that's normal, and the other is abnormal. So we go with the number that's abnormal. So if one of them are elevated, then we treat as though if both are elevated.
Okay, thank you. What is the safest diastolic under 75? Is 65 a good number?
Well, generally your body will conform to its normal. In other words, we're all different. Some people have a blood pressure, let's say 65, and they're perfectly fine. They're not dizzy. They're not fainting. They have strength and energy. Somebody else may feel, like they're faint, So we vary in our response to blood pressure based on our genetics and everything else. But what we tend to do, obviously, a blood pressure reading under 70, under 80, it's pretty good. Now, when we look at the averages at some cultures that don't have any issues, it may average like 110 over 70, and they're in the 60s and 70s. They don't die of heart attack or anything. So somewhere around that is probably a good number, but what we have to be concerned about is, am I following the principles of health? If you follow the principles, then the body will conform to what is ideal for you or healthy for you.
Okay. And our next question. Can you explain the formula for exercise and pulse rate again?
Okay. We start with the number 220. And then that's, then you subtract your age from it. So let's say someone is 20 years of age. So 220 minus 20 equals 200. So 200 would be what we would consider the maximal heart rate. That's pushing yourself to the max. And you don't want to do that. And so what we want to do is we want to, well, for example, let's say we're going to start at 50%. So 50% is 100, right? 100 pulse, beats per minute. Now we generally work up to 75 or 80%. Let's say 75%. So it'd be 0.75 times the 200. You follow me? Just like 0.50 for the 200, and that gives us our 50%. 50 is pretty safe, that's a very low rate, okay? So you start exercising, and if you're, depending on where your goal is, if you're just keeping close to 50, 55%, starting out, and you start exercising, and then you check your pulse rate. If it's up into that range, just above 55, if that's where you're starting, a very low intensity, very safe level. And then if it tends to go much higher, then you slow down, and then you work at that lower pace, generally for a few days, and then we start increasing over time. All right, so that's basically how you do it. You just multiply it by a percentage. 55 to 75% of max is probably, and so that would be 0.55 on the 55% and 0.75 on the higher end of it. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gibbons. Next question. It says, what about patients whose blood pressure medications prevent time out in the sun?
Well, if your blood pressure medication affects your ability to, be exposed to sunlight, I guess coming early in the day or later in the evening in terms of physical activity and then doing some form of activity inside. Or even consider speaking with your doctor. Is there an option that I can utilize that does not affect, it's not affected by the sunlight? Obviously, we want to, as far as possible, get you exposed to or applying the laws of health, so anything that hinders your ability, if you can modify that, that's what you want to do. So what can I do, right? So that what can I take that does not affect my ability to be out in the sun? Because actually being out in the sunlight actually helps with blood pressure control also. All right, and a lot of other important benefits. So do what you can to address that medication and something that will work for you that doesn't affect your ability to be exposed to sunlight.
Thank you, Dr. Gibbons. And our last question is raw agave nectar good for a sweetener?
Yeah, some people use it, it all depends. Now, honey does have some other properties in it, and if you're okay with that, I would choose it over agave nectar just for its potential health benefits. But in terms of blood sugar issues, the best way to know whether it's affecting is to test your blood sugar. And if you see a spike in blood sugar, that could be an indication that this is probably something you don't want to have as much of in the diet. And of course, everything that tends to be concentrated, whether sugar or fat or salt, keep those things in a smaller amount rather than, larger amounts of it.
Thank you very much for answering our questions, Dr. Gibbons. And please remember to put your questions in the chat, folks. and they will be answered in next week. Okay. Thank you very much.
Again, thank you, Dr. Gibbons, for your expertise and the information that we gain every week. I will say that you're coming in a little slurred. I know that your computer doesn't need spinach or berries. I don't know if there's any way that we can up that, because
Sir?
we hear your voice clearly, but I think your Wi-Fi is a little weak this morning. But we'll do our best to stay with the stuff. And again, folks, we have a seventh presentation this morning, preventing and arresting memory decline with age. I've sent this to all my family. Okay. Folks have an issue there. So
all right,
we're listening attentively, and thank you for the information. Dr. Leonard Gibbons.
All right. Okay, thank you, Pastor Dr. Mendes. Okay, we're gonna dive deep today. Now, don't get frightened. I'm gonna try to make this as easy as possible. But I'm gonna bring in a little technical things along the way, but stay with me. This is a very important subject. I mean, the implications of is one thing to have some level of memory decline. It's totally another when it gets to the place that you don't know who you are and you don't even know your family members. And farther than that, personality changes, totally not the same person. This is not something I would wish on anybody. But there is good news. There are things we can do. So stick with us as we delve into the mind today and look at some amazing solutions for parenting and even helping to arrest memory decline with age and this whole question of dementia. Okay, let's look at a picture. You can see here the normal brain on the left and the Alzheimer's brain on the right. Just looking at that picture, it gives you the impression it's shrunken. It looks like it's fried. And in one sense, a brain that is affected by advanced Alzheimer's is fried in a sense. It's sort of like an egg. You crack an egg and it's liquid. But once that heat is applied and it solidifies, there's nothing you can do to reverse that state. But we're going to share a few things that may even help at certain levels, even some experience can be improved somewhat. So stick with us. And so we're going to see what we can do to make this work for us today. So when we talk about Alzheimer's, we're talking about 60 to 80% of all dementia. Dementia, there are a number of other forms of dementia. So what we're looking at is long-term and also gradual decline in the ability to think and remember that affects daily function. So we're talking about your thinking ability and your ability to remember. And so this is what we're going to focus on, these Alzheimer's. And here is another depiction using certain imaging results. You see the normal brain, you see the early Alzheimer's disease brain, and then you see the advanced. And what you see in advanced Alzheimer's, there's very little color and very little blood glucose activity. So you're not getting the fuel to those parts of the brain that need it. You're not able to get that communication that normally happens when your brain is functioning at its best. So now there are stages in Alzheimer's disease. And now we're going to go through those stages. Stage 1. Now you just have to say now, okay, where am I? Am I at stage 1, stage 2, stage 3? You know, where am I in this whole thing? Now, the first stage can last 20 or more years. Now, it appears normal with occasional forgetfulness. And I guess a number of us, as we get older, you know, we are, you know, I'm normal, I'm okay. Occasionally I forget, yes. But this is considered preclinical, all right? Stage 2 can also last about 20 years. Occasional forgetfulness, now others may notice. So it's not just you that are noticing it, other people are noticing. But you still can do your daily activities. And I give a depiction here. Now, if you look at that outer part of the brain, so we sort of sliced it through, and we're looking at a slice of it. Cortical shrinkage, hippocampus, right down at the bottom. This is part associated with memory. So this is a part of the brain that is definitely affected. The next is stage 3, mild cognitive impairment. This can last 1 to 3 years. Now, forgetfulness is noticed by others, as before, may be anxious and having difficulty at work. Still can do your daily activity, but you're more anxious. Stage 4, 2 to 3 years. This is mild to moderate. A formal diagnosis is often made. Difficulty with driving, anxious, aggressive, or withdrawn. May have difficulty with finances. Stage 5, moderate to severe. This is another year and a half to 2. Difficulty with financing, unable to drive, anxious, aggressive, withdrawn, confused, often forgets addresses and numbers, and now hygiene is now also often affected. 6, another 2 to 2.5 years. Unable to do daily activities, professional care is needed. Sometimes doesn't recognize close family. Potential changes, become very aggressive or silent, completely bound to one caregiver. Sleep cycle is severely affected. And then the final stage now needs help with all daily activities. May become unresponsive, often refuses to eat, and has difficulty walking, loses control of urine and bowel movements, little or no language, often experiences less anxiety. So this is not a pleasant ending for individuals who progress through these final stages. So whatever we can do to slow down or prevent that, that is what we're going to talk about today. So stay with us as we delve into the solution. Now, this is a test that all of us can perform. All you need is a peanut butter, a ruler, and someone else in the family to help you in this this test. All right. Now, a change in the sense of smell is among the first clinical signs of Alzheimer's, occurring during the preclinical phase. So this is a test you can do to see where you're at. All right. Now, the left side of the brain primarily processes what we smell through the left nostril. And the right side of the brain covers the right nostril. Alzheimer's strikes the left side more than the right. So this is an important piece to how we interpret what the test is showing. So researchers at the University of Florida discovered all we may need is some peanut butter and a ruler. So let's see what they did. It's called the step smell test, 4-step smell test, right? First step, close your eyes and mouth and breathe normally through the nose. 2, close one nostril and hold a foot-long ruler out from the open nostril. Next, open a container of peanut butter, so someone else could do this for you, the peanut butter part, at the bottom of the ruler, and move closer 1 centimeter upon each exhaled breath. All right, so you're breathing, you breathe out through the nostril, and then they move it 1 centimeter closer. And you keep doing that until, repeat the process using the other nostril. Okay, and you do it, you bring it in until you sense the smell of the peanut butter. In normally elderly controls, they smelled the peanut butter when it came within 18 centimeters or about 7 inches from each nostril. The Alzheimer patient smelled the peanut butter at about 7 inches from the right nostril, but only 2 inches from the left nostril every time. So the left nostril, the Alzheimer's patients had to have the peanut butter much closer before they smell the peanut butter. So if it's 7 out both, you're great. If it's starting to come in on the left side, that may indicate that you are heading towards, advancing stages of Alzheimer's, or you're the early stage, right? So that means you need to be very diligent in the things I'm going to be sharing, and make sure you're doing them with all your effort. Okay. Now this test was from 92 to 100% accurate in picking up cases of Alzheimer's. So this is a cheap, inexpensive, yet effective tool for helping to pick up, where you are in terms of Alzheimer's disease. Okay, let's talk about a few statistics. Started out apparently nowhere a few decades ago, and now 4th leading cause of death in Bermuda today. In Bermuda, we now have an estimated, according to Beans, 2,000 persons living with dementia. When this statement was made was several years ago, so more than likely, definitely more than 2,000 at this point. Now, the cost of treating is humongous. In fact, more than, if you look at the slide, more than cancer, heart disease, and stroke combined. So this is a very costly health issue. In fact, government statistics predict that senior citizens will account for 22% of the population by 2030 and 25% by the year 2050. So these are a large population of individuals that will be seniors. Decline is definitely not something that we don't have the infrastructure to support. So this is an important reason why we can want to address things that can really help. Now, looking at cost, intermediate to complex level residential care could cost close to $120,000 a year per person, $10,000 a month. So this is a costly undertaking, and an ounce of prevention, as the quote goes, is worth more than a pound of cure. So we're going to look at some amazing things that I think will be helpful. Now, let's take a look at the drugs. What are we doing? Well, this is Aricept, one of those drugs. And the Alzheimer's Association, this is a quote from them. At this time, there is no treatment to delay, stop, or cure the progression of Alzheimer's disease. Now, that is as far as a drug therapy approach, but there is good news, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Now, several drugs are approved to treat Alzheimer's. Donepezil and memantine don't delay the onset of Alzheimer's or improve or maintain mental function. That's the Federal Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, and that was quoted in April of 2010. Now, in fact, Pfizer, one of the drug companies, they made this statement, 2018. Pfizer, one of the world's largest drug companies, believes that research on Parkinson's and Alzheimer's doesn't make sense financially. And why is this? Awaken from Alzheimer's. This is a quote I got from that 2016. Over a period of 8 years, drug companies spent $84.4 billion in 8 clinical studies. Conclusion: no treatment group did better than non-treatment group did better than the treatment group. Now, this is not good news. Spending a lot of money, but not finding any solutions. But there is a way out. And so we're going to talk about modifiable factors. And this researchers in the book Lancet, actually the medical journal, Lancet Neurology, theirs is the conclusion they came to: up to 50% of Alzheimer's disease cases may be attributable to modifiable risk factors. Physical inactivity, depression, smoking, midlife hypertension, midlife obesity, lower education, diabetes, and all combined cases. So there are lifestyle factors that are linked to this. And so we're going to discover, well, why? And how does that actually work? Now, they estimated a reduction of 1 to 3 million Alzheimer's disease cases worldwide, and 140,000 to 142,000 cases in the US alone. This we could reduce if we address these lifestyle factors. So this is a significant numbers of individuals that we could actually reduce the cases of Alzheimer's by addressing these areas. So there's something we can do. Now, Drs. Dean and Ayaz Sharzia, they actually work in Loma Linda, California. And they came up with this picture, this way of looking at risk factors associated with Alzheimer's. And you take a look at that, let's look to the external. You see diet, high sugar, high saturated fat. So that's 12 o'clock on this graph. And then let's go to clockwise. Next you see obesity, then alcohol abuse and toxicity, smoking, sedentary, head trauma. So individuals that are in sports like American football, boxers are more likely to exert at an earlier time because of the damage that's created to the brain as a result of the force of these sports. Sedentary, of course, that's inactivity. Small vessel diseases, so the blood vessels of our small arteries are not, they're damaged. And part of that could be related to cholesterol deposits. poor sleeping habits, high blood pressure, stress and depression, high cholesterol, diabetes. Okay, so these are controllable risk factors. And if we can address these risk factors, what they have shown that we could lower the rates of individuals that actually come down with Alzheimer's. Now, there are 4 biological drivers that are linked with these external factors. Now, when we started out, our second session, we talked about cancer, and we were talking about the drivers of cancer, and inflammation drives cancer, and oxidation, and lipid dysregulation. This is with cholesterol and all of that, and sugar dysregulation. So these same drivers that are associated even with cancer are also associated with Alzheimer's. So how can we positively influence decreasing your levels of inflammation, rusting on the inside, that's inflammation, glucose dysregulation, that's talking about high levels of blood sugar, so that you're at greater risk. A lipid dysregulation, so high cholesterol, heart disease, those types of problems, or experiencing stroke, high risk for stroke and heart disease, you are also at significant risk for Alzheimer's disease. Oxidation, free radical reactions, rusting on the inside. So these are factors that we can address. Every last one of them, we can intervene to lower our risk of memory decline that can, at a later stage, affect our ability to think and function. And this is what we want to prevent. So in order to get effective improvement in Alzheimer's disease, we have to address these underlying risk factors and target multiple pathways at the same time. So we've got all these risk factors, and you got the pathways through oxidation and inflammation and lipid dysregulation and glucose dysregulation. We're going to talk about some of them as we go along. All right, so stay with us. So let's start with plaques. Now, most of us are familiar with, when we talk about heart attacks, we talk about plaques forming in the arteries. All right, so there are plaques forming in the brain. Now, how would I define a plaque? Well, it's sort of like an abnormal tissue in an area where it shouldn't be. It's sort of like a scar. You got a scar, you got a car that heals up, but the scar still stays. So it's this plaque. And so if you look to the picture to the right, you're going to see these very dark, look like stars or not stars. And then you got this fuzzy looking like a fuzzball. All right. Now, those bodies, those darker bodies, are called nerve cells. And what happens is nerve cells communicate with each other through these gaps, these spaces between them. Now, this fuzzy looking ball is actually this plaque we call amyloid. And what it's doing, it's preventing the nerve cells from communicating with one another. There's a gap or space between, and neurochemicals jump between, communicate between, and they take messages about how you remember, messages about how you think, and how you communicate your frontal lobe, ability to reason and judgment. So just imagine that these fuzzballs are blocking the communication between cells. And if they're blocking the communication, you don't get the communication. And all of the issues associated with Alzheimer's boils down to this disruption of communication. This is one of the factors. So these are fragments of amino acids. You see the writing there. And amino acids are the building blocks of protein, like letters are the building blocks of words. So the word wall has W-A-L-L. Well, amino acids form different types of proteins. So your nails are formed from a different combination of these letters, as I'm going to use as an example, right? So these amino acid fragments come together. Now, plaques are one of two key indicators of Alzheimer's disease. Now, the only way you're going to know whether there are really plaques is this is after that, where they would examine, they would take a slice of the tissue, put it under a microscope, and they were able to see this formation of plaques. All right, so this is a key indicator. So the question then is, what causes it? And how do we prevent it? All right, and so because this is an underlying factor. Now, based on what we shared already, all these risk factors I've been talking about, so somehow a combination of some of these risk factors are what is creating this fuzzball, these amyloid plaques, which is blocking the communication channels between our nerves. So that's one thing you want to keep. So they look like puffballs. They get stuck in the brain between the nerve cells. And so that's what is happening here. All right. Now, they harbor cholesterol crystals and a compound called advanced glycation end products, AGE. So that was in your quiz. So if they harbor cholesterol crystals, and that is cholesterol crystals are part of this fuzzball, and advanced glycated end products are part of the fuzzball, then a part of the solution is what? Cholesterol. What is cholesterol? Where is it coming from? These advanced glycation end products, where are they coming from? How do I prevent them? Because they are a part of these plaques. Now, these AGEs continually generate free radicals. So free radicals, oxidation, rusting, free radicals, a nail outside in the rain getting rusty, a car going rusty, free radicals, the reaction of oxygen and other factors breaking down the normal function. Okay, so this is what happens. So you got the oxidative process, you got the lipid dysregulation because you got the cholesterol and these advanced glycation end products, and we're going to get to that, but that's involved with blood glucose. So you got blood glucose, you got cholesterol, and you see how these pieces are, and we're going to talk about it in more detail. Now they continue to generate free radicals and low levels of inflammation, which eventually destroy brain nerve cells. So you got inflammation, you got free radicals, you got cholesterol, you got glycated end products. We'll talk about what they are and how they're involved, but they are actually sugar is involved with this. If you don't have the high sugar, you're not going to get these advanced glycated end product, AGEs. So let's delve into them. So a few amyloid plaques won't bother you because our brain has 100 billion nerve cells. Can you believe it? And 100 trillion connections. That number is too vast for me to comprehend. So because the brain has so many connections, if some issues are in one area, it can work around, And that's why it tends to take longer for people to experience these Alzheimer's symptoms. It's not the young, but the middle age and the older. And because what is happening is this process of formation of these plaques is building up from younger age, but we don't know, and we're not experiencing those symptoms so much so because the body has contingency plans. It can work around that area because it has so many different connections, and though it can bypass that blockage, and still you can get this communication going. Now, if the plaques multiply, however, they start interrupting this nerve transmission, which then leads to Alzheimer's disease. So plaques are one of those things. And we know they have cholesterol, right? We know there's inflammation. We know there is rusting. We know there is, all of these factors, and cholesterol are part of creating these plaques that interrupt communication channels in our brains. Now, tau tangles are another one. Tau tangles or neurofibrillary tangles. These nerve fibers, if the nerve itself is fried. If you look at to the right, you see an actual image under a microscope, and you see where it's pointing to plaques, right? Which are the amyloid plaques. And then it's pointing to the tangles. You see the picture of the tangles. In the bottom is a graphical representation of the neurofibrillary tangles. Looks like a fried egg. So it's the nerve itself, right? That's sort of all tangled up. So you got the fuzz balls between the nerves, and then you got the nerves themselves that are all tangled up. So these are the two factors are showed anatomically. You can look under the microscope, we can see this, and you say, yes, definitely, this person died of Alzheimer's disease, right? This is the telltale graphic or image that shows that this is so. So these tangles are inside the nerve cell, and it's the second indicator. So of the two, there's a second. Now, they were first described by Dr. Louis Alzheimer's. So that's where the name came from. Came from the name of the person who described them. Now, not only did he describe them, he also described arteriosclerosis in the brain. So when we think of hardening of the arteries, a lot of us would think of it in terms of, yes, the heart, blood vessels, but blood vessels in the brain, which can lead to a stroke, which can lead to contribute to arteriosclerosis. All right. So he found in one of his patients who suffered from this disorder, and so it was named after him, Alzheimer's disease. So arteriosclerosis in the brain is significantly more frequent and severe in those with Alzheimer's disease. So you have arthritis, if you have heart disease, you're at increased risk of Alzheimer's. You've got high levels of cholesterol, not a good sign. It can lead to this whole, Alzheimer's. So let's go further. Now, tau protein is needed to maintain the structure of nerve cells. Now, think of it like reinforcement rods. So the structure within a nerve cell, the walls inside the house, the structure, so that you can live in there, so things can work in there. So they are actually the structural material inside. And so what they do is they get what they call phosphorylated. Let's use a common, something you will understand, they get fried by free radicals, they're attacked, okay? And they start tangling all up. So now you got these tangled construction material, which should be a different shape, but now they're really not how they should be. Now, the normal brain, these tau proteins can be broken down by digestive enzymes and removed from the brain. So a part of the aging process, the body has glitches, and the body repairs glitches, genetic glitches. It has these enzymes that correct. And so the brain has these enzymes that correct, and they remove some of these abnormal fried construction materials in the nerve cells before they take over and cause these tangles, which actually make it impossible for the nerves to communicate as they should normally. So there is a broken down by digestive enzymes and removed. So this means that somehow we've got a low supply of these enzymes. Logical conclusion from my perspective, if there's you don't have enough of the digestive enzymes, then these tau proteins are going to keep getting fried, and mess up. All right. So, of course, and if the free radicals are increasing, which are frying them, right? But then you got the digestive enzyme, which takes them out, cleans them out. All right. So there are two things that we're looking at here. So the Alzheimer's disease, you get a buildup of these proteins. They are not being broken down or removed by the digestive enzymes, as I said. So our goal is to stop the plaques or prevent the plaques and the tau tangles from forming in our brains. And if they're starting to form, we want to stop additional formation of these plaques and tangles, fuzz bowls, and fried nerves. Okay, so this is what we want to do. So let's take a look. Diabetes and amyloid plaques. So let's look at diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is characterized by higher than normal levels of insulin in the brain. So you got more insulin in the brain. Now, normally the insulin degrading enzymes break up the insulin, break up amyloid beta peptide. So our normal levels, the insulin enzyme breaks down the insulin. So you got insulin, you're producing too much. And so there is this enzyme that breaks down the excessive. That's how the body does. It produces something you need. And if you got more than you need, then there's something that the body has to dispose of it. All right. So you've got these enzymes that degrade the insulin. Now, these same enzymes break up the plaque. So what happens? When insulins are high, as in type 2 diabetes, most people who have diabetes, the insulin degrading enzymes get used up, right? And none is left over to break down these amyloid beta peptides or these fuzz balls from being created. So if you get your sugars under good control, then your insulin levels are not as high and you don't need as much of these enzymes. And so these enzymes can now keep these fuzz balls from being created. So this is where diabetes has a factor in Alzheimer's disease because it affects these amyloid plaques. So we have these insulin degrading enzymes. They can degrade the beta plaques just after it is cut off or cleaved. If you look at the graphic on the bottom, to the far bottom, you see, far bottom close to the left, you see cell surface. You may see that written. And then you see, don't worry about all of these names and all that, but there's enzymes, you see this. And then you see this, looks like worms, and they're flying, they're sort of going up and they're forming these fuzz balls. You see the fuzz ball there? So the enzyme is necessary to cut this process, stop this process from happening. So it doesn't go to form these plaques, right? Normal low levels of insulin promote the clearance. It breaks down these plaques. It prevents them from forming, all right? Now, after insulin increases peptides, it promotes the release of this. All right. So that's why it's important that we figure out how we can address this. So let's look at these secretase enzymes and amyloid plaques. So you got introduction of beta, these enzymes, and snips off, and it gets stuck in the cell membrane, which forms the fuzzball. So just for your purposes, the important thing to remember is this type of enzyme actually creates a problem for us. So the fewer the enzymes, the fewer the fuzzball. So this is another factor. So you got these insulin enzymes, you got secret. So the take-home message is, let's lower your blood sugar. That will be a good thing to help prevent all this from taking place. So let's talk about vitamins. Two vitamins. Folate is a B vitamin and vitamin B12. Now, folate sounds like foliage, which sounds like leaves, right? So folate and vitamin B12. Now, high levels of both promote low levels of this chemical called homocysteine. And what happens here? You have low levels of these enzymes I just talked about, right? And so you don't have any plaques. So here we go. We've got, so if I'm controlling my blood sugar on one hand, and on the other hand, I make sure I got high levels of folate and B12, then the plaques won't form. See, all of this graphic down below, basically what it's saying is, if your folate and your vitamin B12 are high, it's going to stop the plaques from forming. Your blood sugars are normal, it's going to stop the plaques from forming. Okay, so that's what we want to do. We want to prevent the buildup of these plaques. And so what we need is lots of folate, lots of B12, and you need to keep your blood sugars normal, under 100. Okay, 3 things so far. So let's look at the B vitamin. So high homocysteine levels. This chemical damages the brain, your ability, your cognitive, your thinking, your memory declines. It also helps in the creating of these tau tangles. So this homocysteine is involved, high levels is associated with both, right? And if your B vitamins are up, it will suppress the formation of homocysteine, okay? So high B, low homocysteine, good memory, no tau tangles, no amyloid plaques, no fuzzballs, no fried nerve cells, okay? So this is the important part for you. So we want to keep it down. So what do we consume? Green leafy vegetables. Now, spinach and broccoli are exceptionally high in the B vitamins, right? The folate we're talking about. Nuts and seeds, sunflower seeds in particular, and beans and pintos are one of the highest. So these foods are high in folate. So make sure you double up, triple up, quadruple, these foods. Actually, you can put the spinach as a part of a smoothie. And as we look at some of the other things, you could throw them all together and make a nice, powerful, memory-supporting smoothie, okay? So keep that in mind. You got sunflower seeds, you got spinach, you got broccoli, you got beans, pintos are particularly high. And you also got vitamin B12. The best way to get vitamin B12 is from our supplemental source. There are some you can put under the tongue, and that will absorb into your bloodstream without having to go through your stomach and your digestion absorption. And as we get older, we don't have that ability, many of us, to effectively absorb the B12 from our gut. So under the tongue may be a good thing. You can get your B vitamin, B12 vitamin tested. If it is low, do something to bring it up. Taking it under the tongue, supplement, injection, any way to ensure that your B12 levels are significantly high, and then your greens and vegetables are significantly high. B12 is often fortified in foods like, I know we talked about the importance of more plant-based, so almond milk or soy milk in the grocery store have added these vitamins, okay? All right, so now people with Alzheimer's, believe it or not, are 4 times as likely to have elevated homocysteine levels, 3 times as likely to have low folate levels. So the folate levels are low, yes, and homocysteine levels are high. And that's how it goes. One is low, the other is high. One is high, the other is low. All right, so we want to keep those homocysteine, keep the folate high, keep the B12 level high, and then we're going to prevent the formation, help prevent the formation of these plaques. Now, there was a study, randomized controlled trial, the abbreviation put there, found that homocysteine of accelerated brain atrophy in people with mild cognitive impairment. So people who have mild, they just, they're starting on that. If they added the B vitamins, both B12 and folate, it slowed the rate of brain atrophy. So you can take our vitamins, and we're going to talk about how much to take of certain vitamins that can really help to slow down this cognitive impairment. Okay, now as we age, our brain slowly atrophies. The atrophy, it shrinks. But the shrinking is accelerated in people suffering from Alzheimer's. An intermediate rate of shrinking is found in people with mild cognitive impairment. Of course, if the shrinking is accelerated, it's in more advanced. So the shrinking is a part of it. And so this brain atrophy or shrinking of the brain can be slowed by B vitamins. Now, researchers gave people B vitamins for 2 years. And they found that these vitamins markedly slowed the rate of brain shrinkage. The rate of atrophy in those with high homocysteine levels was cut in half. Think about it. Cut your homocysteine, your rate of brain shrinkage by half by giving them vitamin B12 over a 2-year period of time. High-dose vitamin B treatment, folate, 0.8 milligrams. This is what they had in this study. B12, 20 milligrams, B6 rather, and then B5 milligrams. Okay, slowed shrinkage of the whole brain volume over 2 years. This is one reason, one area where it's clear that vitamin supplementation can help slow the progression of a particular disease. All right? So these are examples. Now, a follow-up study demonstrated that B vitamin treatment reduced by as much as 700%, the cerebral atrophy in those gray matter regions of the brain, specifically vulnerable to Alzheimer's disease process, including the medial temporal lobe of the brain, right? Temporal lobe of the brain. So let's go to the next, AGEs. AGEs are protein bound to sugar. All right, so this increases inflammation, oxidative stress, rusting. Inflammation is pain, is redness, is swelling, is heat. So inflammation, oxidation, rusting, which cause wrinkling on the outside and rusting on the inside. They can fry the brain. All right, they negatively impact on the function or also the heart, the liver, the intestines, the kidney, the fat cells, the immune system, the brain. So AGEs are not a good sign. Accelerated aging. Think about it. AGE, aging, accelerated. Alzheimer's, all a part of that. And we talked about what happens. So an Alzheimer's disease patient has 3 times more AGEs in his body than people without Alzheimer's disease. So this is a critical piece. So what is it? Where does it come from? How can we lower levels? So AGEs are found in plaques and tau tangles and are a probable cause of the tangles. So here you go, AGEs in both. Once the plaques form, they become a place for the AGEs to lodge. So you got this formation, the AGEs come, the cholesterol comes, you know, all of these things just pile up, creating these abnormal, destructive cells. Now, they can be formed in the blood and brain when there's elevated levels of glucose in our blood. So diabetes, this is a critical piece. So eating tons of sugar, it's going to increase the level of AGEs, the formation of plaques and tangles, and could accelerate the rate of Alzheimer's and memory loss as you age. So clearly think about when you consume what you consume. It's more than, hey, I like it tastes good, I feel good, but what's gonna happen over the years if you continue this, you know, this type of dietary lifestyle and all of that, okay? Important thing to consider. Now, they do not occur in fresh plant foods like fruits, beans, and vegetables. Okay, so there you go, your nuts, your seeds, etc. AGEs in food is formed during heating and storage. So storage and heat. Think about it. Now, in foods containing an abundance of water, cooking will not form AGEs because the water content blocks their formation. So cooking where water is a part of the process decreases the formation of these advanced glycated end products, these accelerated aging compounds that damage, you know, a whole lot of cells, including the brain. Now, steaming, boiling, poaching, stewing, stir frying, or using a slow cooker prevent the creation of AGE. So these are the best cooking methods to prevent the formation of AGEs. Frying or grilling meat actually create AGEs. Chicken, bacon, hot dogs, beef, turkey, fish, and cheese has some of the highest amounts of AGEs of any food. It's usually more intensified in the cooking process. Snacks and biscuits can contain large amounts of AGEs. Cornflakes has large amounts of AGEs. Okay, this is a highly processed packaged food. Okay, so cornflakes are probably not something you want to be eating much of. All right, they have these aging compounds and these foods here. See how they're typically grilled meats and fried meats create this high levels of AGEs. And they also form during storage. So you've got this stored packaged food, which has fat and all of those other things in them. And long-term, it gets worse. All right, alcohol. Now, the higher the consumption of alcohol over a 30-year follow-up study was associated with increased odds of hippocampal atrophy in a dose-dependent fashion. Now, the hippocampal area of the brain is this memory part. And it's shrinking as a result of alcohol. And the more alcohol people consume, the higher the level of brain shrinkage. So if you want to shrink your brain, drink alcohol. The more you drink, the greater the shrinking will occur as a result of this. So this is in a reason. So here we see here, greater than 1 to 2 drinks a day, 5.8 full. That's 5.8. That's over 500% increased risk. All right. Adverse brain outcomes. Then cognitive decline, Alzheimer's disease. 1 to 2 drinks, 3 to 4 fold increased risk. No protective benefits of 1 to 3 drinks per week. So even 1 to 3 drinks per week wasn't helpful. So no alcohol is the place to be. If you don't want to develop Alzheimer's, don't drink. Drugs. Believe it or not, there are medications that increase the risk of dementia. In fact, sometimes what seniors are experiencing is the effect of the drug. And if they got off the drug, many of them will be better. The confusion or forgetfulness was caused by the drug. Quite frequently, we discovered that what looks like dementia in a senior citizen is actually pseudo-dementia, which is confusion or forgetfulness caused not by aging, but by some other agent, such as a drug interaction. Common culprits are these: sedatives, hypnotics, blood pressure medications, and arthritis medication. Anticholinergic, you can see that Levsin or Detrol. Okay, you have the handout, so you can check what medications you're on, or people you're working with, or your seniors, your relatives. Because what we may be looking at is some impact. And seniors, like any other group, tend to have more medications than others, which is not a good sign. We need to be able to get to the underlying and address the lifestyle issue, and not just give people pills as if it's some grand solution. The solution is in the lifestyle. And here we see another list of benzodiazepines, Valium and Xanax, cough suppressant, antidepressant. You see a whole list of medications that can create dementia-like symptoms. What about saturated fat? Cholesterol. We started out talking about that. Now, 2 studies, 1,000 autopsies each. What did they find? Arteriosclerosis, hardening of the arteries in the brain, is significantly more frequent and severe in those with Alzheimer's disease. So 400 folks with mild cognitive impairment to Alzheimer's disease were followed up for 4 years. They did a CT angiograph, which used to evaluate the brain artery blockage. Those with more cholesterol buildup got worse. And those with the most blockage rapidly declined. So you see this connection between arteriosclerosis, the buildup of plaque from the cholesterol and fat and all the components we talked about when we were talking about cholesterol and heart disease. So here we have this buildup, rapid decline as a result of that. So anything that creates heart disease will increase the likelihood that you're going to end up with dementia as you get older. Excuse me. So cholesterol over 250 could potentially triple the odds of getting Alzheimer's. So 300% increase by a cholesterol level over 250. So you want to know what your cholesterol level is? Yes. You want to know what your blood sugar levels are too, right? Because that's both are linked. There's a direct correlation between the amount of bad cholesterol in the blood and the amount of amyloid built up in our brain. Man, a direct correlation. What does that mean? The higher your LDL cholesterol, the greater the amount of plaque in your brain. So we want that LDL cholesterol, that bad cholesterol, lower. And what's a good level? You want your level closer to 150 or lower. All right, so this high levels of LDL is not a good sign. So the sugars are high, your LDL levels are high. Those are two things. You have coronary artery disease. All of these are signs that your memory is probably going to be affected, if not now, sooner in the future. Now, elevated levels of blood pressure in midlife. Now, this is important here. You can see this here. This is between 40 and 60. It's consistently associated with elevated risks of cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's disease, dementia later in life. So you have high blood pressure, you're at high risk. High cholesterol, you're at high risk. Diabetes, you're at high risk. So now the pulse pressure can damage the small vessels in the brain, which can cause microbleeds in the brain. One of the important factors that causes cognitive impairment. So this is how this elevated blood pressure can result in cognitive impairment. It's a factor in many strokes that double the risk of dementia, brain shrinkage, specifically in the hippocampus, the memory center of the brain. So here you have this connection, these strokes. So the pressure elevation, another key factor associated with memory decline. So 300 patients with Alzheimer's and vascular disease risk factors, cholesterol, etc. High blood pressure, high cholesterol. They were treated for those risk factors. And guess what happened? There was significantly less decline and slower progression of disease than those who were untreated. So they had a group of individuals there. Pressure was high, cholesterol was high, probably blood sugar was high. They brought those numbers under control and they saw a decline in dementia, memory-related factors. So what can we do to arrest? Now, let's take a look at that. Arresting. Let's look at 12 o'clock. So regular exercise, moving and standing. So this whole idea of not sitting around all day. Now, a lot of us are in sedentary occupations. We're sitting most of the day, and even when I'm seeing patients who come to me, they're diabetic, hypertensive, et cetera, I'm sitting. So the importance of getting up, moving, even if it's like every hour, 5-minute walk, moving around, regular movement, getting a type of, some people go so far as they have these mini sort of like a treadmill type of thing where they are actually standing, walking on this device while they're working. Others are just in elevated sort of platform on their desk. So when they're working, they're actually standing. So there are different things we can do to help that process. So you've got movement, regular movement every day. You don't want to be sitting all day. Meditation, stress management, faith, all about unwinding, all about exercise. Continual learning. Now, we're not going to deal a lot with, well, what you don't use, you lose. So what will happen is if you don't challenge yourself mentally, you don't engage in things that encourage you to think and reason and reflect. Actually, the study of God's word and comparing scripture with scripture is an amazing way of developing the mind. Music, purpose-driven activity have a restoring effect. All right. In one experience, there was this gentleman who was, he was, on that definitely decline to the point where he was not really communicating with those who were around him. What they did, they discovered the type of music he listened to when he was growing up and younger person. And they recorded all those music, those things he used to listen to. They put earphones in, they gave him a little device to capture it. And would you know that he came back to himself? There are some connections that lasted a while, and then he had to, he put on the device, and then he started to communicate with people after a while. So there are connections in the brain that music have that is not as intensely intertwined with some of those other areas of the brain. And it actually helps people to communicate who otherwise would not communicate. So music is a powerful tool. Social engagement, voluntary. When people get older, this whole idea, I'm going to retire, I'm going to do nothing, not a good plan. You want to be engaged. You want to be volunteering. You want to be assisting others. You want to keep your mind active. Sleep, 7 to 8 hours of sleep, critical piece, a part of optimizing, right? Sleep is critical in memory. We're not going to deal with it a lot today, but bear in mind, it's a critical piece in this whole, in fact, consolidating what happens, your experiences through the day happens when you're sleeping. The mind, when we're sleeping, is not doing nothing. It's restoring, it's sorting out, it's filing away, it's reorganizing, it's helping your memory connections. All of that happens when you have restoring restful sleep. Then you see plant-based diet. We're going to talk more about that. Omega-3 fatty acids, fasting. I did have a slide. I'm not sure if I took that one out. But limiting intake actually can boost memory. Vitamins B6, B12, folate, etc. We're going to talk more on this side. Daylight exposure. So you want that daylight exposure. You want to be inside in dark, unnatural light. You want to get natural sunlight. Now, all of these are important in arresting and reversing. Okay, obviously early stage, we can do something. In some instances, we can address even some more advanced, and we're going to give you some examples today. So, see the multiple intervention points for assisting people with Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. So it not only helps with Alzheimer's, it has other forms of dementia, excuse me. Okay, so let's dig in. Now, the lowest rates are in Africa and India, South Asia. Now, in one study, the rates were 3.24 per thousand in India versus 19.3 per thousand in the US. So definitely much lower rates in Africa, India, South Asia. The highest rates are in Western Europe and North America. Sort of looking at the same type of scenarios we were looking at. We were looking at blood pressure and cholesterol levels, and even in weight status. You know, these more cultures where they're living close to the earth, eating more from the earth, you know, having the lowest rates of these diseases. Now, the incidence rates for dementia and Alzheimer's in Nigerian Africans is up to 5 times lower than African Americans living in Minneapolis. All right. When people from one ethnic group move from their homeland to the United States, the Alzheimer's rates dramatically increase. So what does that tell us? Well, if living in my homeland and I move to America and the rates increase, then it's not genetics. Something in the lifestyle change. And what usually changes is the diet and level of activity. And we're going to see some of those examples, as you can see here. Here is McDonald's over in Japan. Now, the prevalence of dementia in Japan has shot up over the last few decades. Reasons include increases in daily cholesterol, saturated fat, and iron from increases in animal products. So these 3 factors were associated with higher levels of dementia. We talked about cholesterol. We know about the saturated fat. Now, excess iron acts like a free radical. It's a pro-oxidant. It's a rusting agent. All right? Too much iron is damaging. All right? Now, from 1961 to 2008, meat and animal fat increased considerably. This is in Japan, whereas the rice supply dropped. So here you have the Japanese people going away from their traditional diet to consume more of American, meat-based, animal-based diet, which we tend to associate it with influence, but it is reaping higher levels of dementia in the Japanese as a result of copying America's way. Now, Alzheimer's rates for the Japanese Americans living in the US are closer to that of Americans than to Japanese living in Japan. So this lifestyle change is definitely been a factor. So data shows that vegetarians are 2 to 3 times less likely to become demented. And the longer one eats meat-free, the lower the associated risk of dementia. Globally, the lowest validated rates, and I put that in the quiz, are in rural India, where they eat low meat, low carb, high bean, high carb diets, and also higher levels of turmeric. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Now, 19 people in every 1,000 over the age of 65 develop Alzheimer's every year in rural Pennsylvania. In rural India, only 3 in every 1,000 adults develop Alzheimer's. Turmeric consumption is considered one factor linked to these low rates. 1,000 people who consume curry occasionally did better on simple cognitive tests, ability to think and remember, than non-consumers. Often consumers had half the risk of showing cognitive impairment. So more turmeric, less cognitive impairment. There was 3 example case studies, 3 individuals, all right? These were Alzheimer's patients treated with turmeric. All right, so they had the whole turmeric. Actually, they had a teaspoon a day. Case 1, 83-year-old woman started losing her memory, getting disoriented, problems taking care of herself, wandering aimlessly and incontinent. Okay, what happened? After turmeric, agitation, apathy, anxiety, and irritability relieved, and she had less accidents. She began to laugh again and sing again and knit again. Amazing. Just turmeric for these individuals. This is one case though. You don't make a decision based on one case. But when we think about it, when we look at the population, the highest population, the population have the lowest risk, consume the most amount of turmeric, right? And even in the group studies, we see a better cognitive improvement in those that consume the most Cori, compared with those that have the least. And now we're looking at some individual people. Now, after taking turmeric for more than a year, she came to recognize her family and now lives a peaceful life without a significant behavior or psychological symptom of dementia. Amazing. We would think there's nothing we could have done for this person. So you have to be diligent. You have to be consistent. So 1 teaspoon a day without break. Now, case 2 was similar, but they also had hallucinations, delusions, and depression. After the turmeric, she began to recognize her family again and now lives in a peaceful, serene manner. Amazing. Case number 3, similar to case 1 and 2, their improvement included areas of cognition. Now, this is the first demonstrating that turmeric may be effective and safe for the treatment of symptoms of dementia in Alzheimer's disease patients. The dosage, 1 teaspoon per day. Now, let's look at some studies. There was the Mediterranean diet study in Alzheimer's. Mediterranean diet, certain areas in the Mediterranean, they tend to eat a certain way. Now, let's take a look at this particular study. Mediterranean diet associated with lower Alzheimer's disease risk, slower cognitive decline, but which part of the diet is responsible? So, traditional Mediterranean diet is high in vegetables, beans, fruit, nuts, and low in meat and dairy products. So that's the traditional Mediterranean diet. Now, when they tried to tease out the protective components, fish consumption showed no benefit, neither did moderate alcohol consumption. The 2 critical pieces appeared to be vegetable consumption and the ratio of plant fats to animal fats, meaning more plant fats, better protective effect. More vegetables, more plant fats, foods with plant fats and plant fats, okay? Now, the more plant fats consumed, the more protective they were from Alzheimer's disease. Now, the MIND study, this was another research. And what they did, those who adhered to the MIND diet had slower rates of cognitive decline, which was equivalent to 7.5 years of younger age. Cognitively, think about it. They had the age cognitively of someone who was 7.5 years younger than they. Those individuals who went on the diet, almost 1,000 people participate. What was involved? It was based on 10 foods: green leafy vegetables and other vegetables, nuts and berries, beans and whole grains were eaten freely. Fish, poultry, olive oil, and wine were allowed in small amounts. So here you have it, a study where you had the control group and the experimental group, and you see the benefits of this high intake of these plant-based foods, low intake of the fish, poultry, and olive oil and wine. Sort of closer to a Mediterranean type diet. Now, the foods that were avoided on this diet were no red meats, no butter, no stick margarines, no cheese, pastries, sweets, fried foods, and fast foods. So here you have it. You see the types of foods that people tend to consume, and you ask yourself, well, why are these high levels of dementia? Why is it increasing? And it's the diet. The diet is a critical piece. So watch out for these foods. These are the things. You want to improve your memory, you need to address these fats, these meats. You need to consume more of the plant foods. Now, the Rush memory study was another one. Among the vegetables, they discovered that green leafy vegetables have been identified as the strongest protective effect against cognitive decline. So you want to get your greens in. If your memory is on the decline, your greens need to be on the increase. Whether you put them in a super smoothie, add them to soups, in salads, cooked vegetables, however you can get the greens in, they are powerful memory supporters. Now, in the Rush Memory and Aging Project, the rate of decline among those who consume 1 to 2 servings per day of greens is equivalent to be 11 years younger in age. Can you believe that? Mentally wise, cognitively wise, us. 11 years younger, just 1 to 2 servings. Now, I suggest you go more than 2 servings, 4 servings, especially if you are experiencing deficits in your mental and your ability to remember. You want your greens to increase in a significant way. Now, the Hawaiian Dementia Prevention Trial. Now, this was another study. Now, as you can see here, this trial was designed to divide 75 participants in 3 groups: a supplement group, a food group, and a control group. They were randomized into the 3 groups. So they didn't choose the group a special way so that the study ends up being something we can trust. So if you look at the score based on this test, sorry, let me go back. So the mini mental state exam, you can see 30 and above. This is where you want to be. You can see dementia. You see the start of the test, and you see at the end of the study. You see the differences. Now you see a normal, 25 to 30, then mild, and then dementia, less than 20. Now you can do this test yourself to give yourself an idea of where you're at. Just go on the internet, see if you can find it, and then just go through the test. So you have the peanut butter test, and you have this mini mental state exam. All right. So the results were best in the supplement group, where borderline dementia participants became normal in 9 months. All right. So let's take a little detail into the study. Now, the supplement group took 12 different nutrients. Differences averaged 19 at the beginning, that's the score, and at the study, and were tested at 29 the months later, the 9 months later. They went from 19 to 29. Definitely saw an improvement in memory. Now, these were the supplements, the type of supplement, and the amount that they consume. Now, typically, if you go to the marketplaces or the, your typical store, vitamin supply, not necessarily going to have these particular type and amounts, usually in very good suppliers of nutrients and herbal products. Okay, but I put this here so you can see how much. It's not that some of the others won't work. These forms work very well. And so they just had a supplement that they added to the diet. Okay, now, and these are the rest of them. So CoQ10 and zinc and selenium, ginkgo, gotu-kola, these are herbs, right? And so these herbs are very good for memory. Then you see the nutrients, you see coenzyme Q10, and we don't have time to go through all of that, and we're not going to go through all of that here. Now, the food group did not improve, but they did not decline. They sort of maintained, all right? Now, they added 1 cup of blueberries or strawberries or red grapes daily to 1 ounce each of ground walnuts and sunflower seeds. And no hard cheese, broiled, barbecued, or deep fried. Avoid excessive sugar intake. Now, this could have been actually improved even more, really beefed it up. They could have added a lot more greens. They could have avoided more animal-based products, along with it, much like the other diets we talked about, the MIND diet, etc. But this is what they did. And that was the result. Now, of course, the control group, they did not get better. They declined. All right, so a little bit about ginkgo. Meta-analysis of 9 studies combined showed that it delayed the onset of Alzheimer's disease, as well as it's also effective in treating the condition. So it delays people getting Alzheimer's, and it also helps people who have Alzheimer's. And I gave you have the amounts based on the previous study that probably represent a safe and good amount to have. Now, if you're taking other medications for other conditions, probably you want to get some advice. Make sure you're not getting some interactions that are potentially harmful. So you can connect with me. You have individuals, memory issues, and they're trying some things, and would like some advice, you can definitely touch base. So substantial evidence suggests that ginkgo biloba protects the nerves in the memory areas of the brain from the free radicals associated with the formation of the protein. So this is how ginkgo works. It protects the nerves. There was an infusion arm twice daily for 1 month in patients with severe dementia. Now, there was a significant reduction in shouting, screaming, and physical aggression. They were less socially withdrawn and more engaged and constructive activity. Now, more than 50% of patients enrolled experienced these symptoms. And here was a simple lotion applied that was effective in severe dementia for improving. Now, the drugs that are used basically have a way of knocking people out. So they're not more constructive. It just dumbs you down. So you don't react. But with this lemon balm, actually they became more engaged and constructive. a simple thing that could be applied to individuals with dementia in facilities, at your home, wherever they are, to improve their symptoms. Now, this is another study that looked at rosemary and lemon in the morning, and lavender and orange essential oil in the evening for one month. And what happened? Their abstract reasoning and cognitive function improved. To the left graph at the top, you can see the decline. And then you see what happens after they added these essential oils. Wow, both. So their abstract reasoning improved and their cognitive, their ability to think and remember, both improved as a result of the essential oils from lemon and orange and rosemary and lavender. Isn't that good? Isn't God good? He provides healing in nature. Now, this is another study that looked at saffron. And you can see here on the top graph going up and the lower one, a decrease in the formation of plaques. And we've actually got pictures here. To the left at the bottom, you see the plaques. And then to the right, you see less. And that's in a petri dish. So they just demonstrated that this herb was effective at preventing the decreasing the formation of plaques. And this is also looking at, excuse me, the tall tangles. And you can see the graph to the left and the graph to the right. And also you can see the level of formation comparing those, you see the tall tangles, and then you see them with the addition of, actually this is a component from saffron, very effective in a petri dish. This is a clinical study. Alzheimer's symptoms got better over a 16-week period after taking 30 milligrams per day of saffron. And so you see saffron, and then you see the placebo, they got worse, but in the saffron, they got better. Here's another study that compared it with Aricept, one of the main drugs, and they were equally effective. And this is saffron, which compared with the other thing, the second main drug. So saffron was just as effective in both. Blueberries, 4,000 phytochemicals are in plants, right? So the berries are most powerful and have these amazing anti-inflammatory properties. Chemicals called anthocyanidins. This is the natural blue-purple pigments that are in these berries, and they're also in Concord grape juice. These pigments are actually localized in the physical brain area involved in learning and memory. Isn't that amazing? That these chemicals actually reside in the part of our brain responsible for learning and memory. So we want to make sure we get in a healthy dose of these natural blue, purple, pigmented foods. Blueberry supplements have been shown to improve memory in older adults. Concord grape juice has been shown to improve verbal learning also. So just imagine you have a smoothie, you put some Concord grapes in there, you got your blueberries, you got your greens in there. Adding all these pieces, the omega-3 from the Framingham study, this is the Boston study, heart disease over decades. They were studying this group in Massachusetts. Now, what they discovered is the lower the DHA, this is a type of omega-3 fatty acids, levels are associated with smaller brain volumes. A double-blind intervention study that gave omega-3 fatty acids to healthy older adults significantly improved executive function after 6.5 months of supplementation. There was also significantly less brain shrinkage compared with the control group. And this is showing you an example of a bacon version from vegetarian, 450 milligrams in this example of this omega-3. So the omega-3 index, 4.4, EPA to DHA. Those are two types of omega-3. The algae from the seaweed, daily, 250 milligrams for 4 months. And it raised the omega-3 index from 3.4 to 4.8. This is a good thing. Positive health benefits as a result of this index rising. Now, higher current fish consumption in one study predicted worse cognitive performance. Higher past fish consumption in childhood predicts slower perceptual speed and reaction time. We're talking about people always talking about eat fish, fish very good, but it's affecting memory. Why? This may be due to neurotoxic contamination, such as mercury in fish. And what the randomized trials show, no benefits in fish oil supplements from 6 to 40 months of use. So let's not go down that road. Let's choose the alternative. The algae plant version of omega-3 would be a better, healthier, protective, and with none of the side effects. Not vitamin D and Alzheimer's. Journal of Neurology, 2014, mild vitamin D deficiency resulted in a 51% increased risk of dementia. 125 increase in vitamin D blood levels were very low. So vitamin D is also an important vitamin. And I added this 30% calorie restriction in one study, improved memory in the elderly by 20%. We eat too much. We give people too much food. Pull back somewhat, but increase the level of the what? The fruits and the vegetables, high, the greens, the purple fruit. Yes? Now, we're going to end with a study of a case study that was individual was taken care of by Dr. Dale Bredesen from UCLA Department of Neurology. He works with the Alzheimer's research. A novel approach which integrates some of the things I've been talking about, and I'll briefly talk about them. So now, I threw this slide in here, and just to give you an example, wait a minute. Oh, this was actually a testimony of someone who shared about a relative of theirs who was following a more healthy diet. Then they went out and they had this dinner. And what happened to their memory after one meal? Trying to be strict with food, dementia returns when eating processed foods like fried tacos recently from a grandson's party. The next day, my husband's memory took a dive and he could not focus. Can't let down guard for one snack or meal. The second day, maybe 50% recuperated. On the third, maybe up to 60, 70% recuperated. And may take up to a week to fully recoup lost ground. So what we're talking about, this memory, this dementia, is impacted, and that impacted impact can take place at one meal. And think about it. When you provide food to those who have issues with memory, to stay with the plan we're talking about, eat the foods that we've been discussing. So this is the case, 67-year-old traveling business analyst. She had experiences 2 years of progressive memory loss. She was no longer able to analyze data, prepare reports, 4-digit numbers, reading, navigating, pets, and lights. So all that she was supposed to do, or what she did before, she was progressively unable to do these things. Her mother had developed dementia in her early 60s and lasted for 20 years. She felt suicide was the best option and called a friend to commiserate. So she was basically deciding, I'm not going down this road. I know what happened to my mom. So it's genetics. I'm going to end my life. Well, luckily, her friend knew someone else. So she got her appointment with Dr. Resident, who did a comprehensive testing and set up a full treatment plan. So this is an example of the results: toxicity, trophic loss, glycotoxin, that's a sugar problem, inflammation, vascular. So he looked a number of parameters and areas to come up with a score and to decide what's the best treatment approach for her. And so in time, as a result of what he shared with her and her application of it, the symptoms had abated. She was able to prepare reports and navigate without problems, read and retain information, and remember foreign numbers. Overall, she became asymptomatic. The symptoms went away. She noted that her memory was now better than it had been in many years. Can you imagine that? Amazing. So what was her program? She eliminated all simple carbs. So we're talking about all these highly refined, high sugar processed type foods, drink and sodas and your typical, like your pastry like items, pastries and all of these things, high in salt, high in fat, high in sugar, processed foods. So we've done all that. Now, he also took her off gluten. Now, gluten may be an issue for some, but so that was taken off. Increased vegetables and fruit, and we talked a lot about that, and we know the ones particularly we want to increase what I shared. She started a stress reduction program. They helped to increase her sleep from 4 to 5 hours to 7 to 8. So that sleep is critical. A part of that, she was given 0.5 milligrams of melatonin at bedtime, 1,000 micrograms or vitamin B12, methylcobalamin, and 2,000 international units of vitamin D3. Let's go on. DHA and EPA, those omega-3 fats, 1,000, that's what she got daily. CoQ10, 200 milligrams. We talked about that also. Oral hygiene, electric flosser, electric toothbrush. She had taken off hormone replacement therapy. She was reinstated an appropriate amount. She did what they call 12-hour intermittent fasting. A good way of doing that was eating breakfast. This was dinner and breakfast. That's what she ate. And nothing until, wait a minute, breakfast, dinner and breakfast, 12-hour intermittent fasting. My suggestion, based on what we shared already, when we talk about weight loss, you eat breakfast and lunch, then you have this long space of over 12 hours before you eat anything else. That's what you want to do. a minimum of 3 hours between dinner and breakfast. Dinner and bedtime, rather. The longer the space, the better. And if your dinner is actually even farther back, you're more likely to have a better outcomes. Breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, supper like a pauper. Or if you're really having issues with this memory and all of that, I try to cut back to 2 meals a day. That would probably be really, really amazing. Lots of exercise, 4 to 6 times per week. And that was the plan. So men stumble over the truth from time to time, but most pick themselves up and hurry off as if nothing happened. My hope and prayer for you is that you will not be one of them, but you will take this information and apply it or share it with those who can benefit from it. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this time we've been together. We thank you that there are solutions to this dreaded problem of Alzheimer's and dementia. We have been a part of this program this morning, help them in their application, and may they experience benefit and be able to share these precious truths with others. In Jesus' name I pray, and for his sake, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. Gibbons. I want to thank you for the presentations again, Dr. Gibbons. And thank you everyone for being a part of the experience. Trust and pray that you have benefited from all the information. And we look forward to seeing you next week for the final presentation, August the 29th, turning stressful encounters into opportunities for growth. Again, get your questions into us. And thank you so much for your participation. We look forward to seeing you next week on the 29th. God bless. Have a great day, great week, everyone. God bless you.
Oh, let me just answer.